What's up, y'all? I want to share today something real quick that I feel everyone should be doing. Everybody can do. You see, I have literally a whiteboard. I don't have any special setup whatsoever. This is something I feel everyone can do. But before I do that, I want to go over why most people don't, and why either most people don't or most people won't, and it's not because they're incapable. So in order to kind of explain this a bit, I got to share give some context of what I've seen and why this is relevant. My background, studied IT and marketing in school, played Division I basketball, went to Brazil, lived in Brazil for 2 years, played professional basketball there, came back home, worked in IT and marketing for about 2 years, and then I took this left turn and went into the world of insurance and network marketing and all this stuff, right? And so here's the thing, I'm gonna share, and this is actually a really big reason why people aren't a fan of a lot of these different types of ways of working and all this stuff. Here's the thing, going to Brazil, what it did for me is it started to stretch my capacity, my mind, right? Like I grew up in Maryland. I traveled on vacation here and there with my parents. My dad was in the Coast Guard, but never did I live somewhere, right? So when I went to Brazil, I lived in Brazil. And just like the experience, like I tell people all the time, if you have not left this country and lived outside of the country, traveling's cool. You go to a resort, it's like you're still in America overseas, but actually living there, it just gets you to think on a completely different capacity. And so when I came back home, I wasn't getting paid on time down there at times. It was rough, man. And so I came back home, and what happened? I go to work. I had an IT degree, tried IT for a little bit. And then I got blessed to work at a creative marketing agency for a bit. We were doing live production, all that stuff. It was really cool. However, my time in Brazil had kind of got me like a taste of being able to see the world and all this stuff. And so I was antsy, y'all. Like, I'm just be honest. Like I'm going to work. And I'm just like, I don't want to be here, man. I just don't want to be here. Like I was just down in freaking Paraná and São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and now I'm in the same city every day. It was a lot for me. It was a lot. And here's a blessing and a curse from that experience for me. The blessing was I got exposed to something different. I got exposed to something that most people don't get exposed to. And so I got a chance to see the world from a different capacity. That was a blessing. The curse was, because I wasn't really grounded all the way, I started to kind of resent where I was at, right? I was working in a decent position. I started to resent it. Then I started to resent just the idea of traditional work. And so if you look at my old content, I'm like, it just so happens today to be National Entrepreneur Day. I was that guy. You follow somebody on Instagram right now that says, quit your 9-to-5, live the financial free life, right? Yes, I was that guy. Yep. And so what I found was there's two parts to this thing called life. One is the emotional side of just experiences, being able to see the world, spending time with your family, right? It's the goals and the dreams that we have when we're a little kid, right? We want to be an NBA player. We want to be president. We want to go to the moon. It's all that stuff, right? And then it's also the logic behind the things that need to get done, the responsibilities, right? The things that you have to do, right? Great Debater is one of my favorite movies. It says,
we do what we have to do so we can do what we want to do.
Those two worlds have to come together, I believe, for us to really create a life that's special. Here's the thing, growing up for me was a lot more about the idea of the responsibility side, right? Which is hey, I'm going to school. I'm a really good athlete. Hey man, if you have an opportunity to play professionally, we'll see, but get your grades right. You're studying IT, you're gonna get a good job coming out of school.
What do you have to do right now?
My homework.
To get to it.
Yes, sir.
Right? And that was my life growing up. Going to Brazil started to open my eyes to whoa, there's so much that can be I remember being in Argentina the day President Trump got elected the first time. And I remember meeting some guy who's like 24 years old, owned some investment company in like Australia, and was traveling to freaking Brazil. You know what I'm saying? Just like, I just hadn't. No, it's just not for. Nope, it's not normal, right? So, what ends up happening for me is that I went through this journey where I started to resent people and even entities that taught me the route that taught me the way of thinking of like, hey, work hard, contribute to a company, right? My dad was in the Coast Guard for 30 years, and he went to the government for another 15 years, 45-year career from 18 to 63, right? And so that's what I learned: work ethic, consistency, and all that stuff. And so once I got exposed to just different, and I started thinking like, man, I never saw any of this stuff, right? And I'm working, and I got introduced to, like, if you guys are familiar with network marketing, I got introduced to network marketing at like 24 years old. And again, I'm meeting people 25 years old making $250,000 a year, passive, like, what? Right? Like, the worlds I come from, like, you're getting that. The dream is hopefully to get that, like, one day in your life when you're about to retire, right? And so here I am again. I get exposed to the dream. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, there's all these things that can be done. Like, this life that's just possible out there, right? If you guys are familiar with the guy, his name's Patrick David. I got a chance to visit his house, the founder of Value Team. I got a chance to see his $25 million mansion, right? And the reason why I brought this up at the beginning, a lot of people have been exposed to like network marketing and just all this stuff, right? Just different businesses and stuff. And that's the challenge is, it's like, here's the dream. Oh, the dream is going to be financially free, right? And if you're not careful, you can start to lean into the dream so much. Like they say, like, you sip the Kool-Aid, right? Or like you can go so hard on the dream of what's possible that you kind of like lose sight of reality. Okay? And so I think I'm in a place in life now where I'm like very aware of both sides to the coin, and I've become very clear that both are required, right? Because there's some of us in the world today that our life is it's so realistic. It's so focused on just practicality and realism and logic, and if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, right? And the challenge with that perspective is that there's a lot of things that have happened in the world that have changed the world that didn't make sense at the time, right? Like Martin Luther King's dream of black and white kids coming together, that didn't make any sense, right? The rockets that we see going to the moon, that didn't make sense, right? The love that you have for your kids, bro, you'll do anything, you'll run through a wall. If you're a mom watching, you literally could pick up a car to save your kid. That defies, watch this, it defies logic. It doesn't make sense. And so for those of us that are in the life of just realistic practicality only, we have to be able to open our mind to dream a bit, okay? Now, for those of us that are in the world of, I'm telling you, and the people that have known me over the last few years can tell you that I was definitely that guy. Just like, man, the dream was possible, man. I could do anything in life, right? Right? At the time, I'm like, I'm around people who are doing well. I'm traveling. I took my mom to Hawaii. It's the dream, right? I'm heavily involved with my church, right? And the challenge on that end is that if we lose sight of reality, then the dream never comes to pass. If we lose sight of the things that have to happen today, then there's zero execution. Let me check my. Then there's zero execution, and this dream just stays a fairy tale, and it never actually becomes reality. It never gets executed, right? And so I've gone through some journeys, man, and I'm hoping that this can offer you some perspective. Just my whole page. So Evolution TV, the whole idea about it is like, as I'm transcending like certain levels of awareness in my life, I'm just sharing. I just want to share, and I'm hoping that I can help you do the same. So here's what I come to terms with, right? I've come to terms with if you are just living your life based off of what you've been told is possible and what you've experienced, then you are in the camp, the logic, realistic, practical camp, right? You're in the camp that trusts what they see, which is okay, right? It's like, I gotta see it to believe it. You're in the camp that if I haven't seen it yet, I don't believe it. Does that make sense? Like, you saying what? We could do what? Yeah, right. Okay. There's another group here that's like, I don't have to see it. I just have to hear it. If I hear it as possible, it's possible. Like anything's possible, man. I could become a quadruple-naire in the next 3 days, right? All I gotta do is pray and ask that God sends it to me. Now, I am rich, I am successful, I am blessed and highly favored, and I am so happy and grateful that all the riches in the world are attracting themselves to me. And I'm still broke. You know what I'm saying? So there's these two camps, and I believe the most special place to be is, it's almost like Democrats and Republicans. I'm trying to see if it's right or left, or if this is, I think this is showing up right. This says Limitless, right? I'm going to talk about this. So that would mean that this is left side. This is going to be Republicans. I mean, I don't know. This is Democrats. This is Republicans, right? So it's kind of like Republicans, Democrats, and Republicans. I tell people all the time, I don't know anyone that would jump on a plane if the plane only had one wing. I know it's a weird time to be talking about planes right now too in America, right? But no one would do it. Why? The plane's going down right away, right? And so in America, if you're far left liberal, you're asking for the country to fall apart. If you're far right Republican, you're asking for the country to fall apart, right? I went to an event recently in DC, and just because I don't know enough about the organization, I'll hold off on the name of the organization, but they do bipartisan like debates. It was really cool. And what I could feel is the event that I went to, it represented this, if I can find out, share it, it represented this clip that I saw on Facebook that said,
Never want to win an argument because you start to lose the relationship. Instead, you want to see arguments as something to unravel. Find the knot in the conversation and start to unravel it rather than tugging your way and me tugging mine. And so when you go into the conversation with something to learn rather than something to prove, you're going to walk away with a much better communication.
And so when I was at this event, it was like Republicans and Democrats coming together to genuinely try to understand each other, okay? That is what I believe the realistic, practical, like logical thinkers in this world have to find a way to understand and come together with those that are the dreamers, the artists, the creatives, right? It's like right brain, left brain, right? I believe right brain is more emotional, left brain is more logical. Yes, I believe so. The challenge is the brain does not work effectively if it only has one side, right? Imagine, I mean, this just doesn't work that way, right? And so as a human being, and then as human beings connecting with other human beings, if we can find a way to come together and say, hey, I'm gonna dream of all the things that are possible in this world. However, we have to have practical steps to get there, right? We have to have a practical understanding of our capacity, what we're capable of, and then our confinement, I guess, in the today. And that's what allows us to create this incredible life where, I mean, I've seen, you know, I think I was saying, I went to Patrick Bet-David's house, and a $25 million mansion. This guy's buying up, what's this thing called? Like planes and hangars, and you know, it's just crazy, right? You see some of the stuff that people around the world are doing. And sometimes we hear these crazy stories and we're like, nah, there's no way that this person is making this or doing this. That's impossible, right? You see LeBron James, you see what he's doing. It's like, oh, he's just a freak of nature. No one could ever be as great as that. And it's like, yeah, but there's also another LeBron James that wasn't consistent, that didn't work out, that didn't have integrity. And he didn't make it to the league, right? There's guys that are the same height and same actually, watch it. You know what's crazy? Wow. As I'm sitting here, one of the limiting beliefs that I had when I played ball, I was like, wow. There it is. One of the reasons I got into business and stopped playing basketball, because I was like, well, I can communicate really well. And so I'll probably be better in business than I would in basketball. Cause like in basketball, I'm good and I work hard, but I'm not as big as LeBron or Kobe. So that could be a detriment to me. And that doubt, that seed of doubt. And as I'm talking to you guys watching this right now, you know what comes up to me is Steph Curry is shorter than me. No, maybe Steph Curry's a little bit taller than me. He's a lot slower than me, a lot less athletic than me. And he's one of the greatest Olympic champions, NBA champions, one of the greatest players of all time. Is it that Steph was just touched by God differently than I was, right? Is that Steph had this magic sauce when he was born? Maybe it's just that Steph had a certain level of belief that I didn't. But here's the thing, Steph could believe he's gonna be an NBA player. There's millions of people in America that believe they're gonna make it to the NBA. Here's the thing, I played pro ball. I never genuinely believed I would make it to the NBA. It's like at the time, I didn't have the courage to believe that much, right? And so I would always tell people, hey, look, the league, but like, I could play overseas professionally. I would tell people, hey, I'm gonna be on varsity as a freshman. That happened. I said, I'm gonna play D1. Almost didn't, made it. And then I said, I'm gonna be a pro. I never said I'll be an NBA player. As I look back on my life, it's probably because there was a lack of belief. So for me, I was too realistic. Here's the challenge. There's other people that are not realistic at all, which is okay. Like, have the dream, that's cool. But yet, you can tell that it's not a real belief or real vision because they're not putting the work in that Steph Curry put in. And so we could say, well, Steph was just gifted to be that, you know. But then I think that if you even say that to Steph Curry, he may find it disrespectful for you to think he was just born talented. There's a lot of people that are Steph Curry's height, have the ability to be an athlete, but didn't put the work in. And of course, yes, he had a dad who was in the league. I get it. You think there's not other players that have dads in the league that have environments like that? And so knowing that, as I look back on my journey, I would have to accept that either Steph Curry dreamed bigger than I did, right? Or worked more than I did. Or maybe it was both, right? And so this video wasn't supposed to be about Steph Curry and my journey as an athlete, but it just came up as literally, you could go back as I'm talking and I'm realizing, wow, this is important. This is important because as we reflect on our lives, we have to understand why decisions were made, why we chose the route that we chose, because it's only in understanding your own story that there's any remnant of what we would call self-awareness, right? And so I say that to say that one of the mistakes, like I said, that I made was this whole like, man, I was too realistic as a kid, and then as a young adult, I was too dramatic with the dream or all this different stuff. And it's not, here's what I've come to terms with. It's not a matter of dream smaller. Some of the most impactful people in the world have had insane, like delusional level type of dreams. It's that when you do dream that big, the level of intentionality and effort in the today becomes more intense. And so if you're gonna go that far to dream, you also have to double down on the today, because dreaming without seeing where you're at today, nothing happens. And then only focusing on today and not dreaming, also nothing happens, right? And so here's the exercise. All right, we're getting to it. Here's the exercise I wanted to share. I thought this was supposed to be a shorter video. They always supposed to be shorter. Here's the exercise. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to give yourself a chance to dream for a second. I want you to just let go for a second, okay? I understand it may be far-fetched. It may sound ridiculous. It may sound childish, okay? You look at the word, it says have a childlike faith. Not childish, but childlike faith, right? I want you to just let go for a second. I want you to think of what is the The limitless version of you, what does that version of you live like, right? Like, what does life look like for the limitless version of you, okay? Meaning, if you have zero limits, I understand our bodies do have limits, but our minds actually don't. But let's just imagine you have zero limits on your life whatsoever. What would life look like? Would you be in Bali every weekend, right? Would you, I don't know, would you own a helicopter? I don't know, whatever it is. Right, I'm giving you examples, but this is yours. I want you to take some time to do this, okay? Would you, I don't know, would you run for president? I don't know. Prez. What would you, I don't know, would you quit your job? Would you go apply for a job, right? Maybe in a limitless life, you're applying for Google because you're unafraid, like, I'm applying for Google, yep. I'm working for Google, right? Or maybe it's Nvidia, maybe it's Apple. I don't know. Whatever it is, just give me the limitless. Like, hey, if life were limitless, I would be traveling every freaking 2 weeks to a different country with my family. I would buy my mom a house on the water. Just take yourself there for a second. What would life look like if you had just that limitless life, right? If it wasn't limited, okay? Once you're done that, very simple. The second thing I want you to do is I now want you to look at your current circumstance. Let me see, is that good? Okay, yeah, that's cool. So you have the life that's limitless, and then I want you to look at your current, possibly limited circumstance. And you say, okay, well, I know I want a helicopter, but right now I'm driving this Honda, right? Or let's say, hey, I want to be financially free or something, right? Or I want to, I don't know, maybe you're an artist, you want to perform you want to get a Grammy, right? Maybe that's it. I don't know. You say, right now I want a Grammy. You say, I want a Grammy. And then you say, but right now, my current circumstance is I post videos on Instagram and I get 10 views. Okay? I want to be financially free, but right now, I'm late on the rent. On rent. Right? I want to run for president, but right now, though, I don't even understand the difference between communism, right, and capitalism, right? Whatever it is, okay? I want you, and I know it's crazy, right? This doesn't have to be, like, extravagant. This is a freaking whiteboard, okay? Everybody has one of these. You don't have to have any money to be able to just write this down, okay? So, what's life look like if you are limitless? And then I want you to now come back down to earth. All right, this is not one of those hokey pokey. Hey, just tell yourself I own a helicopter. Right? I own a helicopter. Now, affirmations are important, and there's a reason behind them. But I own a helicopter without saying, but right now I own a Honda. Right? It doesn't work. But what I want you to do is I want you to think of the limitless life that you did. That just, if you could. If time and money were no issue, what would you do? And then I want you to come back down to earth and talk about where you're currently at, right? Here's the last thing. That's step 1, step 2. Step 3, I want you to ask yourself, how does this circumstance lend itself to this, what we call, let's say, future vision or future goal, okay? How does it lend itself? Meaning, we don't have to go, we're just gonna go there real quick. If you don't believe in this, you don't have to listen, but if you know the story of Adam and Eve, okay? It's this idea, God gives Adam this garden, right? And Eve to help him with it. And it's like, it's abundance. There's grass, there's water, there's just everything, right? There's just abundance and a great life, just everything's amazing, right? There's all this great stuff. And then the enemy's like, yeah, but what about that tree that you can't eat? Yeah, but what about that? But what about that? It's like this big dreamland that God gave Adam and Eve, and then the enemy's like, I don't know. Okay, here's what's happening. In this moment, what you're doing is you're saying, hey, what's a limitless life look like? And then we're going to look at the things that are happening now, but instead of, because here's the challenge. The reason why most people don't want to think this big, let's just say, is because if I start dreaming this big, talking about having a freaking helicopter and going to Bali and quitting my job or working for Google or being financially free, having a Grammy. But because we're so stuck in today and in the reality of today, if we're not careful, what we'll do is we'll start to resent today. So like, I'll be honest, if you look at my last video, I talked about the mountain and I said there was a time where I stopped desiring the mountaintop because I was content, but my contentment started to turn into what? Complacency. So I stopped desiring, and then I didn't even want to be around people who desired the mountaintop anymore, right? Like, or if somebody that I know gets a new car or something, I don't even want to see it, right? Somebody sends me a Instagram message of some trip, I'm like, I don't even want to see it because I started to resent, like, almost either resenting this type of stuff, like, oh man, those people are silly, or that's all they care about, or whatever the case may be. I don't want to see that. I don't even want to think about it, right? Because it's either I resent it or I don't want to fall in love with it. I don't want to idolize it. I don't want to be like, I don't want that feeling when I feel like less than because I don't have this stuff. There was a season of my life where I felt less than because I hadn't accomplished this stuff. So never again am I gonna desire this stuff because I'm never gonna feel like I'm less than, because I'm not, because I was created with power, right? I'm capable of so much. I'm a valuable person. So anything that makes me feel less valuable, I'm pushing that. I'm gonna reject that. I'm gonna push it away. Okay? Here's the challenge. This isn't what was making me feel less than. It was me almost like doubling down on or idolizing my circumstance. And I was like, well, yeah, but right now, I don't have none of this. Okay? I hope this is making sense. So what I've learned is that we can't have the dream without the reality. Okay? We cannot, if we are so realistic that we can't dream of bigger, we'll stay stuck for the rest of our life. But if we are stuck in dreamland and we can't see the reality, we'll also stay stuck for the rest of our life. But if we can have the dream, recognize the reality, and then give the reality a new meaning. Okay, what do I mean by that? I want to be financially free, but right now I can't pay the rent. I'm late on the rent. Obviously, if I look at this from one perspective and I say this is stopping me from getting here, then it'll stop me from getting there for the rest of my life. Then my current situation will forever hold me bondage from that freedom that I desire and seek. Okay? So instead, let me give this new meaning. Let me ask myself, how does this circumstance lend itself to this? So what does that mean? Well, I want to be financially free, but currently I'm late on all my bills. How does being late on my bills right now help me to one day become financially free? Oh, Greg, what are you talking about? It makes zero sense. Watch this. That does not make any sense. Even as I'm saying it to you, I'm like, I'm literally, this is an iPhone, by the way. It's not a crazy camera. I'm saying it to you and I'm looking at myself and I'm like, yo, that's crazy. How does not being able to pay my bills on time help me to become financially free? It doesn't. Or does it? This takes intentionality. This is the difficult part. The living financially free part is not difficult. It's uprooting this freaking, what's this thing called? You know that little, where they have like the ball and chain? It's breaking free from the ball and chain, because the ball and chain, or the enemy, or the devil, or the system, right, is trying to get you to focus on the lack. It's trying to get you to say, hey, this stuff's not possible because of this circumstance. What if you were to reframe it and say, this stuff's only possible because of the circumstance? What if you were to say, hey, the reason that I'll be financially free is because I'm experiencing this now, and because Because I've experienced this, I know how much I don't want it anymore, and that will drive me to my freedom. Okay? You have some people, they want a marriage. They want to have a healthy marriage and a family and all this stuff. But the current circumstances, they live in a family where no one's married, and it's all divorces. So if we're not careful, what we'll say is what? Well, this is what I want, but because of this gets in the way. It's stopping me. It's holding me back from my dreams. All I have to do, it's so simple, y'all. And to think about how long it took me to finally understand this is that it's just a reframe. It's strictly just a different perspective. It's just looking at, for example, this example of the divorce holding back from the marriage, right? It's like this chain that's holding this person back from having a life of marriage. Instead of looking at it as a curse, why don't we start looking at this as a blessing? What if we were to say, and this is the part that's the most difficult, to say, if you are watching this today and you have a mom and a dad who got divorced, to say that that was a blessing sounds ludicrous. It sounds ridiculous. But if we could just give ourselves a chance to go there, just try it. Just try it. Ask yourself, how could my parents' divorce have been a blessing for me? Could it have been? By the way, y'all, I'm speaking to you from somebody whose parents are married. Grandparents are both married as well. This is not my testimony or story. My wife's parents did go through a divorce. Okay, so she's experienced that. I haven't. But if you're watching this, and let's just say your parents did go through a divorce, and your entire life you looked at that as a curse on your life that says, this is why I'll never be divorced, or this is why I have a hard time finding relationships. If you could just give yourself a second to just try it with me. I know it's difficult, but just try it, right? If you want to be financially free, but you grew up in a household that was full of poverty and poverty language, and everyone said, hey, money doesn't grow on trees, and turn the lights off, and we won't have, there's not enough money to go around, and that's the mindset. If we're not careful, we will buy into the idea that that was a curse. That's a generational curse. You know, we say we got to break generational curses, right? Here's the challenge. With that mindset, I've started to believe that I am cursed, that something bad was passed to me. Oh my gosh. Watch this. What if I were to just give myself a chance to say, how could this have blessed me? Could this divorce have blessed me? Could the fact that my parents got divorced, could that have made me more intentional about marriages? So now I read marriage books and I pay attention to marriage, and I have this like desire to have a beautiful marriage, and it gives me more gratitude for my marriage, because like I've seen other people who all they know is marriage, so they just think it's like whatever. But because I saw a divorce, I know where this could go with this if we're not intentional. So it's important for me, and like having dinner dates, and it's that much more important. If I grew up in a household and it was just poverty language my entire life, that generational curse, what if it was a generational blessing? What if, because I grew up with that language, I now I can identify it. Now I know what it sounds like. And so when I hear it, I know to push it away, right? And now when I meet people who are speaking that language, I can identify it. I can help break them free. This was a blessing the whole time. What if it was a blessing the entire time? What if it was what was needed to be able to get to the marriage that you desire? Because the marriage you desire is one of intentionality. It's not a lukewarm marriage. So you had to see marriage go bad before you could really have a good one. Those 10 views, you're saying you want a Grammy, or you want to have a YouTube channel that people love and adore. But right now you only have 10 views. What if that was a blessing Because what if having those 10 views, oh my gosh, what if having those 10 views taught you to build real connections with your viewers, because it was only 10 of them. And so since it was only 10 of them, you had to be real with them. Like, yo, hey y'all, there's only 10 of us, we're gonna grow this thing. What if the very thing that you resent, the very thing that you see as a curse, is the very blessing that you needed to live the life that God had for you? What time is it? This is a little bit longer video, but I think it's necessary. Because if this was a blessing, then your whole story and your whole journey would have been, it would have been a setup. It would have been a setup the entire time. It would have been the world playing tricks on you to think the very things that are stopping you, the very things that are propelling you forward, are the things that are stopping you. You've been getting tricked by the world this entire time. I work with a guy, his name's Simi Sola Ajimatarajanash something. He's Nigerian. And from what I know, I believe his last name says, it means something along the lines of don't deceive yourself. There's a book out there called what's it called? Napoleon Hill? Something with the, shoot. Come on, Napoleon Hill. It's called Napoleon Hill. It's like where he's a talk with the devil, outwitting the devil. And it talks about the tricks that the devil plays. And if you're watching and you don't believe in the devil, but maybe you believe in negative forces or whatever, the tricks that get played on us to keep us stagnant. There's another book, The Mountain Is You, and it talks about self-sabotage. And like, if you're not careful, you'll let your past keep you bound, right? The most recent book I read, The Courage to Be Disliked, it talks about giving new meaning to those things that are keeping you bound, new meaning to that circumstance. Because the very circumstance you're going through could just be the very circumstance that you needed to live this life. And watch this. So don't deny this life. Don't reject this life either. Don't fall in love with this life and say, you know what? No. I'm just gonna stick to what I got. What I got is all I need. There's a dream inside of you you don't want to relinquish or let go. You don't want to tap into because you're afraid. And you want to know how I know? Because I was. Because you're afraid that if you allow yourself to receive this dream and go after this dream, it's almost like you're afraid that it'll consume you, or you're afraid that you'll get out of order. You're afraid that you'll fall in love with it, right? That you'll fall in love with it and you'll forget about all the other people that you care about in your life. Can I tell you that happened to me? Ask my brother, ask my mom, ask my cousins, ask my family, ask the people that I care about the most. There was a season where I lost sight of who I was and who they were. And it's only because I fell in love with the dream and there were, but I wasn't willing to receive it yet. Here's the thing, there were people in my life that were trying to get me to see the reality. But here was the challenge. They didn't have the dream, so I wasn't willing to listen. They weren't dreaming the way I was dreaming, so I was unwilling to listen to them when it came to the reality piece. Is this making sense? And so the only way that you'll help people keep the reality is first you have to dream. And for the people who are just too realistic, for you to get them to dream, you have to be in tune with the reality. Life is always about the both. It's about the and it always will be. We can have really big dreams and be in tune with who we are. We can have really big lives and also love our family, right? We can be kind-hearted people and also be rich and wealthy. It's not a one or the other. This thing is a both. Man. I think I'm done, y'all. I think I'm done. I'm here getting emotional on this freaking video. I'm talking to myself. I'm by myself in here. But I have a feeling that there's gonna be other people that are watching this too, and along with this little ride that roller coaster ride I just went on the last couple minutes. So, anyways, if you're watching, I'm glad you made it to this far. I'm glad you saw the video, and I'm hoping that it helped. And yeah, that's all I got. Peace.